Good morning, Lighthouse Community Church and Lifeline Ministries, and anyone else tuning in with us today. Welcome to our church service. We're very happy to have you join us. My name is Matt, and I'm going to be the service director today. I have a word of encouragement I want to share with you all, and it comes from Romans chapter 5, and it goes like this. Therefore, since we have been declared righteous by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. We have also obtained access through him by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. And not only that, but we also rejoice in our afflictions, because we know that affliction produces endurance, endurance produces proven character, and proven character produces hope. This hope will not disappoint us because of God's love that has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you that you are our Lord. We thank you that you are our King. God, before you even created the world, you knew that one day your creation would fall and would betray you, God. Yet you still had a plan for our redemption, Lord. You loved us so much that you came into the world by sending your own Son, and you walked among us, Lord, to show us a better way, to restore a relationship with us that we could never have restored on our own. And we thank you so much for that, God. We thank you that you have given us this hope, and we know that your hope does not disappoint, God. But Lord, there are seasons in our life when we are tempted to believe otherwise. We're tempted to believe the lies of the enemy, God. We're tempted to doubt you. And when those times come, God, we just ask that you forgive us for doubting, Lord. We ask that you increase our faith, God. We ask that you come close and you reveal your plan to us in your time and in your will, God. We ask right now that as we step into worship and as we are going to hear the message later, that you open up our hearts, really open up our hearts to receive your word and to listen to what you have to say. God, help us to put all of the distractions that are plaguing our mind, that just are constantly just distorting things, that we can place them aside this morning to focus on worshiping you as a church body and to focus on hearing your word and what you want to speak to us today, God. We love you and we thank you. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Please join us for worship.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I will be set free.
Whoa, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
I close my eyes to see my King in majesty. Your grace compels my soul to love and draw in close. I lift my hands and sing, surrender everything. In you I know I'm found. My God, to you I bow. Now until forever, Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you. I'm desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Through the fire, I'll persevere. I won't submit to any fear. Where I go, you've been before. All my trust is in you, Lord. Now until forever, Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you. I'm desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Lead me to you forever, Lord. I will pursue. I will pursue. You want my heart, Jesus. You're all that I want, all that I want. Now until forever, Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you.
There's a place where mercy reigns and never dies. There's a place where streams of grace flow deep and wide, where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you. I'm in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white. I owe all to you. I owe all to you, Jesus. There's a place where sin and shame are powerless, where my heart has peace with God and forgiveness, where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in all of you. I'm in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white. And I owe all to you. I owe all to you. Here, my hope is found. Here, on holy ground. Here I bow down. Here I bow down. Here, arms open wide. Here, you save my life. Here I bow down. Here I bow at the cross. I surrender my life. I'm in all of you. I'm in all of you. Where your love ran red and my sin washed white. I owe all to you. I owe all to you. I owe all to you. I owe all to you, Jesus. Jesus. Your love ran red. Your love ran red. Jesus.
I've tasted the world, seen more than enough. Its promise is fleeting. Of water and wine, I emptied the cup and found myself wanting. But there is a well that never runs dry. The water of life, the blood of the vine. And all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, all I need is you right now. Just one thing I ask, and this I will seek, this world I've counted as loss. I lay it all down to take up this cross, and all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, and all I want is everything you are and nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything to me right now. And I'll sing, whoa, whoa. I want nothing but to know you and to be with you, my God. And I'll sing, whoa, whoa. And with everything within me, I will worship you, my God. 'Cause all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything I need right now, and all I want is everything you are and nothing. Jesus, if you're not my one thing, everything to me right now. And I'll sing, whoa, whoa. I want nothing but to know you and to be with you, my God. And I'll sing, whoa, whoa. And with everything within me, I will worship you, my God. And with everything within me, I will worship you, my God.
Thank you for joining us for our worship service this week. Here's a look at this week's announcements. A reminder that you can continue to support the ministries and staff of LCC through offering. You can give your offering via e-transfer through your banking app or website. Details can be found on our website at LighthouseYYC.ca/give. Tax receipts have been mailed to everyone who supported our ministry financially in 2020. If you have not received your tax receipt, please contact our treasurer, Kathy Tran, by today. Join us for our Good Friday service on April 2nd at 10:30 a.m. on LighthouseYYC.ca, our YouTube channel, and on Telus Optik TV channel 879. It will be a time of worship, scripture reading, and reflection on what Jesus did for us on the cross. We encourage you to invite your friends and family to our Good Friday service, as well as our Easter Sunday service on April 4th. This Wednesday, March 24th, for YAM, we will be going through a hot topic on biblical view of drugs and alcohol, led by Pastor Tim. If you have any questions or are interested in joining, please contact Pastor Tim. Women's Group will have a lesson on relationships on Wednesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. More details to follow. Please contact our Women's Fellowship Deacon, Huynh, if you are interested. Men's Group will have a lesson on the cost of doing the right way on Wednesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. More details to follow. Please contact our Men's Fellowship Deacon, Jeffrey, if you are interested. There will be Couples Group this Friday, March 26th at 8:30 p.m. on Zoom. If you would like more information on how to join, please contact Pastor David. The worship ministry is looking for volunteers to join the tech team to assist with live Sunday services. If you have experience in these areas or are interested in learning how to produce our online services, please contact our worship deacons Sam Fan or David Tran. If you have any questions or comments about our church events or ministries, we'd like to hear from you. Email us at info@LighthouseYYC.ca. and you can connect with us during the week on our Facebook page and Instagram account. Also, catch up on previous sermons on our website and watch our live services and more on our YouTube channel and on Telus Optik TV channel 879 in Alberta and BC. Our service will continue with a message from Pastor David in just a moment.
All right. Hello. Welcome to everyone watching from Lifeline, from Lighthouse, and everyone else watching on our YouTube channel or from our website or on Telus. I want to thank you for joining us. But before we start, let's go on over to prayer. So let's pray. God, thank you so much for this beautiful weather that we've had lately, God. And I just pray, Lord, for this sermon. I pray that you will speak through it. I pray that you will speak through your word today, God. And I pray, Lord, that we have an encounter with you. I pray that we have an experience with you in our minds, in our hearts, and in our imaginations. And God, out of my weakness and brokenness, I'm just fully relying on you right now. God, we thank you and we lift this day to you. In your name we pray. Amen. So a few years ago, I was reading this book called Prayer by Philip Yancey, one of my favorite authors, a really good book. And in the book, he tells this really heartbreaking story about this man named Carl. Now, Carl, he's this retired soldier turned chaplain, and he works at a long-term care home. And Carl is very active. He exercises, he plays sports, he does a lot of outdoor things like biking. And one day he's on his bike and he's just riding and he's having fun and he's biking down the road when he doesn't see a storm drain. And he sees it last minute, but it was too late. So he hits the storm drain and he goes flying head first. He goes over the handlebars. He's flying head first and he lands on his helmet. The force was so strong that it crushed his vertebrae and damaged his spinal cord, and he was paralyzed from the chest down. So his life instantaneously changed. His Air Force career ended. He was trying to volunteer and help out, but it ended. His workout routine, it went from, working out, then being replaced with like physical therapy, and he struggled. He struggled with coming to terms with his new identity, this new reality that he was in, that now he is a disabled person. So he had to move away from his home to a more accessible home. And man, there were just days where he's constantly fighting internal infections, and he's also fighting like severe like muscle spasms. Now, can you imagine for one moment you are strong and you are healthy and everything is normal and you're doing active things, doing the things you love, and then one mistake costs you everything. It changes everything. But these changes were not the most important one. He commented later on, he said this, "I must say though, there has been one change more difficult than any of those adjustments, even more difficult than the why questions that I can't help asking. God's presence has withdrawn. Just when I need God the most, I can no longer sense him. I keep on praying and believing, but it feels like I'm praying to the ceiling. I get no response." A lot of us can relate with Carl. A lot of us are going through difficult times. Maybe it's dark, confusing times right now. And if you're not, the Bible tells us that we should expect trouble. We should expect hardship. That it's not a matter of if it comes, it's a matter of when it comes. So my question today is, where do we find hope? Where do we find hope in the dark times? Where do we find light in the darkness? So we find our answer in our Bible story today. It's a story about Abram, and he has this encounter with God. And our Bible passage comes from Genesis chapter 15, verse 7 to 18. So Genesis chapter 15, verse 7 to 18. So let's read it. It says this. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into the deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land. Our passage teaches us two things. That number one, trouble and confusion are part of God's plan. You know, no matter if we don't like it, trouble and confusion are part of God's plan. And then number two, we can be confident that God will keep his promises. So in our passage, Abram, he spoke to God from a deep place of discouragement. Okay, he's discouraged. He's coming out of a place of confusion. God had promised him a son. He promised him a son. He promises all these vastness of land. God told him he would have children numbering more than the stars and land as far as the eye could see. But where was it? That's the question. Where was it? Where was this promise? I don't see it. He still didn't have a son. He didn't have any of the land that was promised to him. So understandably, you could tell Abram was very confused. He didn't understand what was going on. He had a lot of questions. He had a lot of doubts. Now, this can be frustrating for anyone. This is a frustrating dilemma, especially when God says something clearly. God says something clearly, and then you don't see it. It's not there. It's like God is dragging his feet, or it's like walking slow, like a grandma shopping somewhere. When I was a kid, I hated grocery shopping with my mom. I hated it. We hated it because it felt like she would take forever. So me and my siblings were so annoying. We always asked her a question like, are we going yet? Are we done? And we would ask it constantly till it was really annoying. And my mom would always give the same answer. The exact same answer. Yeah, we're going now. Promise. So we're like, okay, let's go. And then she would say that, but then we would watch her continue to grocery shop. She'd get some more baked goods, or she would get some more vegetables. So we'd ask again, are we going yet? You said we're going. Are we going yet? And she would say the exact same thing. Yeah, we're going now. Promise. And then she would proceed to do something else, and we would just watch her. We understood that we won't leave until it was the right time for her. We were on her timetable. Everything revolved around her timetable. And a lot of times, that's how God's plan works. He says something, and then it seems like he doesn't do anything. It's kind of like my mom. She says something, but did we leave? Yeah, we left eventually. But it's the same with God. Like we're operating on God's timetable. So we can complain, just like how I complain with my mom. In fact, Abram does the same thing. He complains to God. He complains to God about his doubts. So God responds. God responds to his doubt in verse 9. He says, "So the Lord said to him, bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon." Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. So God, he's telling Abram to bring all the important sacrificial animals. This was to prepare for this official meeting with God. Have you ever had to meet with someone so important? Maybe you had a nice date or a pretty date. Oh, you would have you get ready, you'd be prepared. So Abram was probably really excited. All right, I'm going to get to meet God. So he's preparing the best animals. He's hurrying to get everything done. So he finishes. And all the animals are sacrificed. Abram is ready. Oh, God is here. He's excited to talk to God. But God doesn't show up. God doesn't show up. Abram kept waiting and waiting and waiting. Nothing happened. There was so little action that Abram gets bored and he falls asleep. But it's in the dream where God finally shows up. Abram feels this thick and dreadful darkness. God explains to him that his family line would have to go through the same thing that he just experienced. His descendants would have to wait and wait and wait, and their hopes and their dreams would get darker and darker until the darkness was thick and dreadful. If you ever read the book of Exodus, God's people were slaves in Egypt. And the slavery got worse and worse. But yet this is why God made Abram wait. He wasn't being slow or he wasn't running late. He wanted to show Abram the future of his descendants at a super fast forward speed. Like Abram, his descendants would have to wait because God had a better plan. I remember when Jalen was born or he was coming out, it took so long for him to come out. At first when I thought we would get to the hospital, I thought Jalen would just come on out. But it took really long. When Shaw was in labor, we just waited and waited and waited. I kept looking at my watch because I had a lost party, but man, it took really long. And I started to worry. Oh my gosh, is there something wrong happening? Because this experience seemed to get worse. She was more tired. She was exhausted. She was in more pain. Yet all the pain and discomfort was present because there was this 8-pound baby about to come out. So, okay, we get it. The expectation of pain. Expectation that, okay, this might be a painful experience. Things that we learned in our birth class. That helped our mindset when we knew what to expect. It helped everything. It helped us to hang on, that everything's going to be okay. And it's the same thing with the Christian life. It's important for Christians to expect trouble, to expect that it's going to happen. Dark times will happen. It is a lie to think that Christians are somehow exempt from any pain, from any trouble. It's not true. In fact, trouble, confusion, and waiting is a part of God's plan. It's a part of God's plan. This doesn't mean that God has abandoned you. This doesn't mean that God has left. In fact, all the waiting in darkness. And don't get me wrong, no matter how frustrating, I know how frustrating it can be. All the waiting, all the darkness were the best things God could have done for Abram. It's better than God just showing up and making everything easier. We don't grow that way. So in our dark moments, we have to realize we're actually where God wants us to be. This may be hard to swallow. I get it. This may be hard to accept. But our moments of darkness and confusion and times of waiting are always full of God's grace. There will be a great temptation to throw yourself a pity party, to get bitter and to get cynical. We have to resist that. Instead, we need to make most of the opportunity that trouble brings. This is hard to do. But we have to understand adversity is the best teacher. Adversity makes you stronger. Easy times just make you comfortable. And it tends to make us sometimes entitled. Easy times are incapable of teaching us things that we truly need to learn. So build friendships with people that have experienced a lot in this life. Maybe someone older, build friendships with them because they have a lot of wisdom. This is a time to grow in character. And inspire people with your story. I know a lot of people they don't want to share their story and stuff. And I get it. But I really do believe that when you share your story, whether it's pain, troubled times, darkness, your story could truly help someone that's in need. It could truly bless and inspire someone. So when you're ready, please share your stories. So yes, trouble and confusion are part of God's plan. But be encouraged. God will make the trouble worth it. And that leads to my next point. We can be confident that God will come through on his promises. I had two friends a long time ago, and they were in a relationship. And my friend was like, dang it, I'm in love, my goodness. So to prove that he loved this girl, to prove that he wanted to eventually marry her, he bought her a promise ring. Promise ring, yay! Wow, he bought her a shiny, expensive, really nice promise ring. And I was like, wow, so romantic. And they started having conversations about the future. Oh man, what are we going to do? Fun talks about what kind of wedding they would have. How many bridesmaids? Where will we go on the honeymoon? Oh man, they were having all these talks. They started dreaming about the future, family. How many kids will we have? The kind of house. But then he called everything off. Oh dear. He called everything off. And in the end, he actually did not want to marry her. So he's like, oh yeah, sorry. I can't do this. He had to break his promise. He bought a promise ring and he had to break it. Not the promise ring, but he had to break the promise. Now, I don't know what she did with that promise ring. Maybe she sold it and got something nice for herself. But she got hurt. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her that maybe she would have trouble trusting anyone else. How can you trust someone again when they just break their promise? There's this fear that how can I commit myself? How can I trust this person will come through? There's this real fear. And I think for a lot of us, there's this fear that God won't come through. That God will break his promise. And we have this fear, oh, what if this happens? And we're scared. But in verse 17 to 18, in such rich symbolism, this passage is crazy. It's so filled with rich symbolism God shows Abram that he will keep his promise, not with a ring, but with his life. This is what he says in verse 17. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, "To your descendants I give this land." Now, the smoking fire pot and blazing torch are symbols of the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud. It represents the presence of God, which guided the Israelites out of Egypt through the Red Sea and the desert. They were symbols of God, and these symbols were passing through a corridor of death. Now, in ancient culture, when people arranged sacrificial animals in a corridor to walk through, they knew what it meant. It was a way of inviting the gods to witness their promise. Often these promises would be made between two kings, and they're at war with each other. They're warring against each other, and then the loser would ask for terms of peace. So they would arrange a meeting with sacrificial animals cut in pieces, and the loser would have to walk through the pieces of dead animal, and he would say this: "May the gods do this to me, and even more if I do not fulfill my contract to my new king." It was a prayer for the gods to curse them if they did not fulfill the contract. So the weaker, the loser party would always have to walk through the pieces. But in our Bible story, God does something shocking, does something crazy. He doesn't make Abram walk through the pieces. Instead, God walks through. He walks through all by himself, taking on all the weight and responsibility of the contract. God was putting his own life as collateral, saying this: "I will secure my promise with my very own life." And that's what God does for us too. We're all messed up. We all fall short. Yet Jesus is so serious about helping us that he gave up his life, dying a horrible death on a cross. He secured our future. He secured our future with his own life. That's how serious he is about us. That's how we know that he will keep his promise. We know that if God makes us a promise, he will keep it because he put his life on the line to do so. He put his life on the line to do it. Now, we just have to make sure we are dealing with a promise from God. We need to make sure that we're dealing with a promise from God, not some desire that we feel entitled to, that God must give this to me. Here's the truth. God hasn't promised you everything you want. He hasn't promised you a fulfilling career. He hasn't promised you a successful career. He hasn't promised that you'll have a long life. He doesn't promise that, you're going to be wealthy and comfortable. He doesn't promise that you're going to have a spouse, that you're going to get married. Yeah, it's tough, but he does not promise that. It's not a promise. I'm just being honest. God didn't promise me a big church when I started 1 year back, even though that was my desire. And I was like, oh man, I thought I have good desires. I didn't get that. But he did promise that he will never leave me, that he'll never forsake me. And when things fell apart, God never left my side, even though it felt like he did. There are days when I thought, oh man, he's gone. But he never left. And in the end, everything worked out because God promises to work in all things for our good. God promises to forgive us, that every single time we go to God and we repent and confess, God promises to forgive us. And he promises that we will live forever with him if we follow him. So let us lean into his promises. Let us lean into the true promises that he makes to us. And when we do, this will sustain us in our dark, confusing times. If you are right with God, you can always know that in the end, you will always be okay. So trouble and confusion, they are part of God's plan. And I know that's hard to hear, but they are part of God's plan. We should expect that we will experience confusing and dark times. But in these times, we need to know that there is blessing. There is still blessing in the darkness. We need to actively look for God's grace, all the good things he is doing, and thank him. Acknowledge it. Thank him, even when life is really hard. Because if we don't make that a habit, then we're going to become really frustrated when the confusion comes, when the dark times come. And it's possible to become so frustrated that we become consumed by bitterness, consumed by disappointment. So we need to know that God is looking out for us. We can be confident. We can be really confident that God will come through because he guarantees it with his life. So in our hard times, let's remember the promises of God. Let's rest in knowing that he will take care of all things. He's given his life for us to keep that promise. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for your grace. I thank you for your word today, God. Father, help us to expect trouble. I know it sounds weird, but God, we should expect it, that things will be hard. There'll be confusing times. There'll be times where we have to wait. But God, there's blessing in the darkness. We need to find it. We need to acknowledge it. God, help us to not become bitter and disappointed with circumstances when they're so confusing and troubling. Help us to remember that we are right where you want us to be. So God, help us find the blessing. But God, also help us to remember that we can be confident that God, you will pull through. That God, you will keep your promise. Why? Because you gave your life for it. You know, people promise with promise rings and stuff like that, but God, you promise us with your life. So Father, we can be confident that you will come through. God, we love you and we thank you so much for this time. Continue to work in us. God, we give everything to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
As we conclude our time together today, let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you for joining us today. Go in peace.